Welcome back to the channel, everyone. So we've got one field watch, we've got a couple of dive watches, and yeah, most of them are automatic. All of them get sapphire crystal, so this is quite an interesting collection. These 5 pieces, I'll be leaving the links to the listings in the description below the video, so do check them out if you're after some sharp prices. And now let's dive in and talk about these 5 watches in detail. Let's do it. The Militado D12 version 2. So D12 is obviously referring to the dirty dozen. Now this watch has a lot of things going for it. We've got a boxed, domed, synthetic sapphire crystal. We've got a screw-in crown, we've got a screw-down case back, we've got a stainless steel case, sandblasted, leather strap. A 36mm case diameter keeps it traditional, while the total height measures 12mm, but it actually wears slimmer than that. Much of the thickness comes from the boxed and domed sapphire crystal, adding a vintage charm without feeling bulky. The lug-to-lug span is just 42.5mm, making it supremely wearable even on smaller wrists. On the right-hand side, an unsigned screw-in crown sits neatly, just 5mm across, but taller than average for better grip. Now let's talk about the strap, because it plays a big role in the watch's character. It's a genuine calf leather strap, finished in a rich dark chocolate brown. You can feel the quality immediately. It's supple yet substantial, with a clean matte texture that complements the utilitarian case. Beneath the slightly boxy domed sapphire crystal, you're met with a sunburst brown dial that shimmers like liquid caramel under light. It's not a flat brown, it has depth, movement, a richness that shifts from dark chocolate to warm bronze as the angle changes. Even the small second sub-dial at 6 o'clock has the same sunburst finish, subtly recessed to give a layered look. This is Thorn SHY027, a vintage-style automatic dive watch that leans heavily into classic tool watch aesthetics without losing its practical utility. Right away, the dome sapphire crystal and polished ceramic bezel insert define its retro character. The ceramic bezel insert is deep and polished black, featuring crisp beige markers and a loomed red triangle pip at 12. The case dimensions are quite compact and wearable, 38.8mm across, 13mm thick, and 45.6mm lug-to-lug length. We get a 20mm lug width that tapers to 16 at the clasp. The case is horizontally brushed along the flanks, with a sharp 45-degree polished bevel transitioning to the brushed lug hoods. The downward curve of the lugs gives it a snug wrist-hugging fit, and the flat profile adds to its squared-off vintage stance. Inside beats the Seiko NH35, a self-winding automatic movement featuring 24 joules, 21,600 beats per hour, hacking and hand winding. A dependable engine found in many enthusiast tier watches. It's protected by a screw-down crown, 6.8mm across, which is actually unsigned, and a fluted screw-down case back, offering 200 meters of water resistance. The dial is matte black with a printed Minitrack and loom-filled hour markers in a warm beige tone. The handset is Mercedes style with a loomed lollipop seconds hand. The vintage aesthetics of this Thorn watch are through, and yet it manages to look luxurious and functional. $150 is what this watch will cost you. This is the Hruodland F016, a bold aviation-inspired pilot watch with a distinctive turbine sub-dial and vintage styling. The case measures 43mm across, 12.4mm thick, and stretches to 52mm in the lug-to-lug length, making it a sizable presence, but one with purposeful design. It's constructed entirely from 316L stainless steel with horizontally brushed flanks and sharply downward sloping lugs. In fact, they look like they hook down. Up top, we get a flat slab of sapphire crystal, and it sits slightly proud of the tall fixed bezel. The dial comes in either matte black or rich navy sunburst, like the watch in front of us, both paired with large printed Arabic numerals, white minute hashes, and a classic upward pointing triangle at 12 o'clock. At 6 o'clock, instead of a small seconds hand, there's a custom molded metal turbine with a red tip blade that rotates to track the seconds, a visual nod to jet engines. Inside, the watch runs the Seagull ST3620. The caliber runs at 21,600 beats per hour and features a smooth three-handed layout. The finishing is striking for the price. We're talking $145 before tax. The push-pull crown is oversized in classic onion style, signed with an engraved airplane motif on the tip, another homage to traditional pilot aesthetics. Strapped to the watch is a brown leather riveted strap with beige contrast stitching, reinforcing the Flieger look. It's quick release, but the underside feels slightly synthetic, soft but not stamped with branding or leather grain. The signed buckle adds a final touch of polish. This isn't a subtle watch. With functional presence, oversized features, and that spinning turbine at the sub-dial adds genuine charm to an otherwise rugged pilot watch. This watch is unapologetically classic. It's clearly paying tribute to one of the most iconic dive watch designs ever made. San Martin has given it its own personality with subtle but meaningful changes, making it feel more contemporary and wearable while still exuding unmistakable charm. What's interesting is that, despite its bold look, the proportions keep it very wearable. The case diameter is a sweet spot 39mm with a thickness of 13.1mm. Looking at the profile, you get a real sense of refinement. The tall mid-case is horizontally brushed, crisp and even. But what makes it stand out is the thin 45-degree Polish bevel running along the flank. It's subtle at first glance, but it catches the light just enough to add a sense of depth and luxury. The watch hugs the wrist naturally, without any awkward overhang. The brushing on the bracelet itself is assertive yet refined. It starts wide at 20mm, where it meets the case, and tapers down to a svelte 16mm at the clasp. The bracelet is secured with screw pins. Even the polished outer faces of the links complement those polished bevels we saw on the case earlier. What's really impressive are the bracelet tolerances. It's solid and rigid where it matters, yet the articulation of each link remains silky smooth. No rattle, no play, just a premium feel. The bezel itself has a smooth yet precise feel. The resistance leans slightly toward the lighter side. Not overly stiff, but still controlled enough that you won't accidentally knock it out of place. That's partly because it doesn't overhang the case flanks, which keeps it nicely protected. San Martin SN0004 is one of those watches that instantly feels steeped in vintage charm. It has that retro aura, but with just enough modern refinement to make it versatile. You can actually choose between two hand styles, classic or pencil hands. And while the classic set stays true to the heritage vibe, I personally think the pencil hands work better. They simplify the dial just enough, toning down the ornamentation and giving it a slightly more contemporary feel while still keeping the vintage flair intact. The color palette here really enhances the warmth of the design. The matte black dial contrasts beautifully against the polished high-gloss ceramic bezel insert, and the beige tones of the lume plots and hands just pop off that backdrop, giving the watch a soft, warm, almost nostalgic presence. Size-wise, it's extremely wearable. The lug-to-lug length is a modest 46mm, which means it can comfortably fit wrists as small as 5 inches. The case diameter is just 38mm, and while the height measures 13mm on paper, most of that comes from the slightly domed, boxed sapphire crystal. It doesn't actually feel tall or top-heavy on the wrist. Instead, it sits low and slim, hugging the wrist naturally. The lug width is 20mm, but the bracelet tapers nicely down to 16 at the clasp, which really helps with balance and comfort. When you look at the case profile, you can see it's very much a layered design. Now let's talk about the bezel, because SM has a solid reputation for making excellent ones, and this is no exception. The moment you rotate it, you can feel and hear the quality. The clicks are precise, very tactile, with a satisfying ratchety feel. The resistance is consistent all the way around the 120 click cycle, and it's on the heavier side. That's actually a good thing, because with the slight overhang of the bezel above the case flank, you don't want it to be too light and easy to knock out of place. So what were your thoughts on these 5 watches? Personally, the Militado with that caramel brown, love it. It's just so slick and it's just so cheap. The 2 San Martins, well, they are San Martin, so we know the refinement level there. But anyways, do check out the links to the listings in the description below the video, as well as join the cashback challenge so we all get more cashback. Thanks for watching. and I'll see you in the next one.